lecture series in the past, and we're going to have some future great lecture series. We have two people here that's sitting up on the podium that will be future speakers, and I can't go away without having said their names at least, and that's Dr. Andy Thompson and Dr. Jacob Carruthers. So at this time, for us to have the question and answer period organized, we ask that those that have questions to please come and form a line up here around the front, up front.
Go ahead, Pop.
Please let him come first. We want to limit your question to 3 seconds. The question, the answer can be a lot longer. Okay, and we're going to take the mic over for the question and answer period. But for anybody that leaves at this point, we want to thank everybody for coming and coming out to the series. And if anything comes up in the future, if you're on our mailing list, we will be glad to notify you so you can come again. And we want to be able to thank, and we want to thank again our illustrious speakers. Okay.
My question is to Mr. Bradley. Wouldn't it be more scientific and more valid for you to say, as some of the other white intellectuals, a few of them, and historians and philosophers have said, or at least implied, that this aggressiveness is not something natural. This is taught. It's a cultural thing for greed and selfishness. You become superior after you have grabbed everything, and then you want to justify it, and you claim that I'm naturally superior. You know, the divine genetic right was based on the same thing. All groups have been greedy and selfish. The difference is the white man has been more greedy and selfish than anybody else. I have a question. What do you think about that?
I think you're wrong. I think that with regard to the white race, there's quite a bit of scientific evidence to show that they were aggressive before there was very much to be greedy about, since they were aggressive in their own caves and their own ice. I believe it goes deeper than the conception of greed.
Okay, my question is to, first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Clarke and Mr. Bradley for coming out. And my question is, I heard you say earlier racial polarization. This is to Mr. Bradley. You stated that there seems to be a movement in America, you implied it, among blacks to try to racially polarize the teachings in terms of teaching black history. For example, you said that the Afrocentrism within the school system that they're trying to imply now, we seem to be trying to racially polarize history. But what I see, based upon what I see when you state that, I think of there's Sir Henry Gerald Massey, there's Sir Godfrey Higgins, all these white people, Europeans that have done history, and they've stated in their works that these things were originally created and done by dark-skinned people with thick lips and woolly hair. My question to you is, doesn't it seem like the best thing we should be saying here, instead of coming among black people telling us about we should not do the same thing as white people have done, which I don't believe we've never done and we will do? I think it is more proper for you to go among your own people and tell them not to do that and come among us.
I consider that I'm not here among black people, but I'm here among people. And I also consider that I have the right to say anything I want as long as it's the truth as I know it, and if it's not the truth, I'm happy to learn otherwise. I am trying to say as well that I've talked to some people now who carried Afrocentrism, I think, a bit further than the facts justify. At Vanderbilt, somebody told me that the high cultures of China owed everything to Africa. And that's nice, but try to convince the Chinese of that. What I'm trying to say is that the whites have distorted things terribly. I would hate to see any other group do the bad job we have, because I don't think it's necessary. That's all I have to say.
The question I want to ask is this: in view of the fact, in view of the fact that you say the white people are aggressive and so forth, I don't like to think of it as aggressive. I like to think of it as uncivilized. And in that context, I'd like for you to respond in this way by telling me, how long do you think it will take before white people will become civilized? And especially in view of the fact that if they came out of this cold climate where they did not have access to many things, then since they did come out and they were able to share, or they had the opportunity to share, and they did not share, how long do you think it would take before they will become able to live in peace with the world? And if it is necessary for them to go through some sort of, I don't mean education, some sort of surgery or bravery or some sort of something to make them civilized. Okay.
Okay, when all the speakers come up here, there is a time frame on you, okay, on the length that you talk, okay? So let's try to limit our questions, please. Thank you.
Stick up for me. I think that white people are capable of changing things and thinking about things more or less objectively. I think one thing that's never happened is they never had to until now. We've had multiracial societies, okay, but the white man was on top. But now we're having one in which the white man isn't on top, and so he's got to look at himself. I don't think, I hope, I may be wrong, but I hope that white people can actually become civilized. Gandhi once said, was once asked, what do you think of Western civilization? He said, I think it would be a good idea, and I think that maybe we can achieve that.
Respected Dr. Clarke, Mr. Bradley, I agree with the first paragraph or so of your book when you state that whites are racist and aggressive and sexist and whatnot. After that, all of your proofs seem very terrible to me. Neanderthal being in the line of human evolution, whites' propensity to show sexual objects when they tend to cover themselves in blacks. Revere fertility. But my question is, how dare you try to preach to us about how to save ourselves from people like... Tell it, man. Tell me.
Okay, my question is to Mr. Bradley also. It's related to the previous person who asked the question. It seems from the literature I read of Dr. Diop and many others that the Neanderthals were hominids that never did go along the human line, and that the origin of Europeans can be traced back to the Cro-Magnons, and that the Neanderthals never were humans. So I want to know how you, in light of the anthropological evidence that's been out here, particularly since 1978, how do you account for continuing to go along with that?
I'm not familiar with Dr. Diop's work in detail, but I am familiar with Neanderthals. And to me, there is no doubt whatsoever that the population of Europe still is largely Neanderthal. I've met some people from Eastern Europe and the Russian and the Caucasus Mountain who are more Neanderthal than they are anything else. They are fully human, they're just not quite modern, and they have certain very definite physical attributes and emotional ones. I think that the European population now is a composite of those and other incoming people. And that I disagree with Dr. Job.
Yes. Okay, my question, You were talking about how African people over here in America as slaves, African people over here in America as slaves, embracing the conquerors' religions such as Christianity and Judaism and Islam. One thing you didn't mention was Catholicism, and you said, okay,